Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the final morning of the I Am online experience. Can't even believe it. It's Friday morning, November the 10th. I remember when I put that in my schedule as I was planning this whole session. I can't even believe it's here already. I remember thinking it was so far away. So here we are, the final morning of the I Am online experience, but really it's just the very beginning of the rest of our life as we walk this out one day at a time. I see y'all popping on. I'm so glad that you're here. Once again, if you're new, you're not too late. I'm just so glad that you're here. So many of you have written me, you're so concerned that the videos are going to go away. They're not going to go away. So if you go to youtube.com, and you search for me, you will find my YouTube channel. And all these videos sit on YouTube and they're going to stay there. I don't anticipate ever taking them off. So they'll be there. And then this Facebook will be up as well. So no fear, you can go back and watch any of these videos anytime. You can, I know some have said now they're going to invite some friends over and go through it in a group and lead the group through that. I love that. Have some neighbors that join you, or a small group at church, or other moms in the school where your kids go to school, or whatever it may be. But all this information will still be here and you'll be able to access it at any point in time. In just a few moments, I'm going to dive into kind of my final thoughts as we wrap up today. Nothing too formal. It's more just from my heart, some final thoughts that I had for you guys. Good morning, Linda. Good morning, Gail. Not Jerry, Gail. Good morning, Sean. So good to see you guys on here. So yeah, in just a few moments, I'm going to dive into just some final thoughts that I have. Just a reminder again, you can ask any questions in the comments. You can talk to each other. I've noticed many of you have become friends online through this experience, which is so much fun. I love to see that. So you can write back and forth and interact with each other. Good morning, Debbie. And of course, I'll be paying attention to the comments on my computer as we go through. All right, so we are in this final day of the I Am online experience. We have gone through all 6 parts of the book. You may or may not have read every chapter in the book. That's totally fine. If you haven't, then you have some additional chapters you can go back and read at any point in time that you want to. So does not matter, totally fine. But we have at least done a pretty good overview of how the book is set up, and really done almost like a general timeline of the overall narrative of the Bible and our place in it. And I told you at the very beginning that if we want to be secure, if we want to be the kind of people who can stand up regardless, that we can be secure in who we are, regardless of circumstances or changing career or health issues or changes in relationships or any other unexpected circumstance, then we need to be able to stand on ground that is bigger and stronger and wider and broader than we are. If we are only dependent on our own sense of greatness, our own sense of goodness, our own appearance or skills or career, whatever it is, and sooner or later those things are going to change. We'll lose those things. They won't last forever. And then we'll find ourselves incredibly insecure. So the goal is to find something bigger and more glorious to anchor ourselves to. And I've said this, I think, almost every single week since we started, because as wonderful as you and I are, we're not big enough to anchor ourselves. I wrote in Undone, a boat anchored to itself is not anchored at all. And I'd say a woman or a man anchored to himself or herself is not anchored at all. We need to be anchored to something bigger. And so we've talked about the whole narrative of the Bible and how really the gospel is what we anchor ourselves to. The amazing good news story that we are a part of. That's all about our rescue and our redemption and our security. All right. So, but today I want to really make it more practical. How do we walk this out? Because I know there's many of you that still feel kind of lost, like you don't know where you fit in. You're not sure your place in more of a practical sense. You get it from a spiritual standpoint, but in this life as a human being, where do I fit? What's my place? And we all feel a little bit like at times like we don't belong, I think. I think we all have those moments where we don't. And the truth is we're incredibly unique. There's nobody else like us. So we are going to have moments where we don't feel like we're everybody else, because we're not, because we're different. So how do we walk this out, this new sense of identity and purpose, every single day as we go forward in our lives, regardless of how many days we live? What do we do? This is probably became the most apparent to me back in 2000. Oh goodness, I think it was 2015, a year after my third diagnosis, and I was starting to be well enough that I could travel and speak again. And the very first trip I went on to speak, I had done a whole recording project over the course of a couple of days in Nashville, Tennessee. And at the end of those couple of days, I went out with my colleagues to celebrate, and we went out to dinner, and we were walking on the street. We ran into some old friends, and these old friends of mine, this couple, man and woman, had their daughter with them, this tiny little sweet 4-year-old girl. And she was beautiful, angelic, just precious in every way. And so, well, my colleagues and these friends I hadn't seen in a while were catching up. I bent over on the sidewalk and was talking to the 4-year-old because, how can you resist? And I was chatting with her, asking her about herself and all of that, when out of the blue, she caught me by complete surprise, and she looked at me with those big brown eyes that she had and very innocently said, "Why do you talk funny?" And in that moment, this was, remember, my first trip speaking again after everything had changed, after the surgery and the cancer and the treatment that left me with this lisp and talking different. I do talk funny. I do have a lisp. I do have a noticeable speech disability. And I wanted so bad to get back to life and just do what I always did. But yet I was, I was having to go to life. I was trying to go back to my old life as a different person, and that wasn't possible. So I needed to figure out in that moment, is there a place for me being not quite as polished as I was before? Basically I was very obviously, externally, had a disability. So where was my place in this life? And how do I walk that out when I feel this sense of brokenness? Even though God had healed me, I still walked with a limp. Okay, I still had this disability, and I had to do a lot of hard work of wrestling with: am I disqualified because I'm not perfect? And walking through this book, I Am, and these 6 parts really helped me. But then I needed to get practical, and how do I actually live this out? How do I walk this out? And so I wanted to tell you, just kind of sum up the 3, you can call them 3 steps or 3 actions, 3 priorities for me that I have made to help me walk out my individual story in this life. The first was a sense of awareness. I needed to have a sense of awareness. Now, we've talked about this a lot throughout all of I Am. We need to have this honest self-awareness, which is honest self-evaluation. Okay, so that ability to look at ourselves and our strengths and our weaknesses with grace and acceptance coming up alongside that. So it's a sense of grace and truth going together, where I need to be able to look at myself in all truth, okay, to be able to see myself accurately, meaning that, yes, I do talk funny. And I mean that both physically but metaphorically. Yes, I am broken. Yes, I am flawed. Yes, I am, and have that honest self-awareness without any shame. Okay, without shame, just honest self-awareness. It's that ability to see clearly both your strengths and your weaknesses without blaming or defending or comparing or excusing or minimizing or mimicking somebody else or even trying to hide. So can you and I, this is that first step, this ability to have this honest self-awareness about who we are, both our strengths and our weaknesses, and to be able to see that clearly. Brennan Manning, wrote a book called Abba's Child, which has been transformational for me over the last couple months. And in that book, he simply said this: whatever is denied cannot be healed. Whatever is denied cannot be healed. Peace lies in acceptance of the truth. Whatever is denied cannot be healed. Peace lies in acceptance of truth. You and I, if we want to make peace with who we are, that honest self-awareness is a critical first step to moving forward, okay? And that's ability to be able to not deny the things that we struggle with, not deny it, not try to hide it, not need to minimize it. And remember, because we base ourselves on the narrative of the gospel, we don't have to live in fear anymore. We don't have to live in fear of God's wrath over us. We don't have to live afraid that he's going to withhold love from us, because he has shown us through Genesis to Revelation that he has always wanted to be with us, and that he will even give his own life to make sure that we can be in close relationship with him. Then we have nothing to fear. Self-awareness is not scary. All right. Being able to admit and own the truth doesn't need to be scary anymore, because the truth is that whatever is denied cannot be healed. But if we want peace, peace lies in acceptance of truth. I've said it this way when it comes to identity: if you can lose it, it's not who you are. So anything that you're afraid of losing, your appearance, your talents, your relationships, your marriage, your children, your skills, your health, whatever it is, if you can lose it, it's not who you are. But the love of God cannot be lost. The love of God, the redemption of God cannot be lost. He has come. He has paid the price. As Jesus said, it is finished. So this is what I want you to do from a practical standpoint. And you can't do it right now, but I want you to do this in the weeks going forward. I want you to you can use the back of your paper. Here's our, there we go. There's our chart, our 6-part story with the 6 parts there. Okay. You can flip that over to the back if you want to, or you can get a fresh piece of paper, whatever you want to do. But I want you to get a big old piece of paper, and I simply want you to do a timeline of your life. So do a long horizontal line, a dot at the beginning, which is your birth. So put the date of your birth there. At the end, you're going to put an arrow because your life's not done yet. So it's going to be, for those of you who are math people, it's going to be, or geometry people, it's going to be a ray. Okay, it's not going to be a line, it's going to be a ray. So a starting point with an arrow on the other end, meaning that your life is still going. And I want you to do a timeline of your life. I want you to mark the dates of the most significant experiences in your life, good or bad, okay? The things that have made you, you, all right? Spend as much time as you want on this, but the more detail you do and the more you go into this, the more healing it's going to be. Remember, we're revealing, we're not denying, right? We want peace and healing. So we're going to reveal and put it on the paper. So timeline from beginning to end, well, till today, because it's not done yet. And then use dots on that timeline with dates to mark the most significant moments in your life, the most significant events in your life from birth till now. And it can be anything, okay? Anything, just mark it down on that line. So number 1, the first step is awareness. And that timeline is going to help you with a sense of awareness about who you are. Now let's move on to step number 2. Step number 2 is wonder. Wonder, W-O-N-D-E-R, wonder. The very first week, during the creation week, I did a whole session of teaching on how we are created by a God who loved us. And he intentionally created us because of love. And I shared my story about going to Jenny Lake in Wyoming when I was 15 years old, and how amazing that trip was, and how I stood on the shore of Jenny Lake looking at the Grand Tetons. And I was overcome with wonder at both the creator and the creation. And that my challenge at this season of my life is to look in the mirror, to look at myself, to do that sense of self-awareness with a sense of wonder. The same wonder at the creator and the creation when I look at myself. It's not just the Grand Tetons that are spectacular. God says, the Bible says that that he made us as man just a little bit lower than the heavenly beings. I mean, we are, in God's eyes, a spectacular work of his creation. And so how do we develop this sense of wonder at the creator and the creation when it comes to us. When it comes to us. So this is what I want you to do with wonder, okay? This is step 2, wonder. I want you to look at that timeline, okay? After you finish the timeline with all the significant events, I want you to get a different color marker, a different color pen, go back to your timeline, and I want you to look at every single one of those significant events and answer these questions. How am I different as a result of that? How am I different as a result of that event, that moment, that thing, that relationship, that loss, whatever it is? How am I different as a result? What gifts or talents or skills or extra sense of compassion and tenderness do I have as a result of that significant event? So how am I different, but not just different? How did I gain some kind of gift or talent or skill or sense of compassion or awareness or wisdom or whatever it is? What did I gain specifically as a result of that event in my life? Okay. It can be very, very simple. So it can be as simple as, for example, when I was about 7, 8 years old, my mom struggled with migraines really bad, 7, 8, 9 years old. She had really, really bad migraines. Because of that, I ended up doing a lot of cooking in the family. Now that sounds really silly, right? But I ended up doing a lot of cooking to take care of the family. My mom had these migraines and I like cooking anyway. So I basically learned how to cook when I was in grade school and was cooking meals for my family, which is just blows my mind. But how interesting, because now at this, I mean, I look at that and with more of a sense of wonder. Of course, it wasn't a great thing that happened to my poor mom, but wow, look at this. I'm a mom of 6 kids. Do you think cooking is important for me? It's kind of a big deal. And that moment in my timeline gave me a skill or a gift that a talent, an insight, an ability that I wouldn't have necessarily had any other way. Now that's more of a lighthearted one. But there's other ones like when I was 7 years old, my parents moved from Arizona to Illinois. I remember being devastated. I've never been one that handled change very well. And so they moved from Arizona to Illinois, which is a pretty significant weather difference, let's just say. But it was a very hard move for me. I remember being crushed, devastated about that move. However, now looking back on it, I've moved a lot in my life. One thing that's done for me is I now get on a plane and travel all over the world and meet new people all the time. Those moves throughout my childhood actually helped me to be able to be the kind of woman who can adapt to new circumstances and new environments and meet new people and handle that. Even though that's not necessarily the way that I'm wired up, I learned how to be able to handle it. And then there's all kinds of other things like going through cancer and the gifts and the insights and the abilities that it has afforded me. I mean, it's not what I would have chosen, and yet I look at wonder at that event in my life and how the creator has used that to make a mind-blowing creation. So what I would look at as being flawed or disabled, I see how now this speech disability, the fact that I talk funny, creates incredible opportunities for conversation. Incredible. I have scars all over I don't know if you guys can see my scars all over my arm and then my neck and everything. People always ask about those. So strangers will come up to me and see the scars and ask what they're from. And I'll be able to dive into the story of the last several years and how God has worked through that. The fact that I talk different. People actually, I notice it's at grocery stores and the mall and everything, they actually lean in and listen more closely because they hear a difference in my voice. I mean, how amazing is that? What a great opportunity that gives me. So that's what I want you to do for step 2, okay? Is to go back over that timeline with a different color pen, and I want you to mark at each of those events, how am I different as a result? And what gifts or talents or wisdom or compassion have I gained as a direct result of that experience, all right? Take your time. But think outside the box. I think you will be surprised what you discover. Okay, so we have awareness is the first step. Wonder is the second step. And then the third step is expression. Expression. All right, so I'm going to read one last reading from the book. Here we go, page 269. And the question here that I want you to think of, the action step here for expression is, I want you to think of this question. How could all of these seemingly random details of my life become an offering to somebody else? All right, page 269. You see, most days I feel a strong urge to hide, and that is absolutely true. You guys have no idea how doing this I Am Online experience and making myself show up and be seen every single day is so hard for me. You can ask my team. I would be a hermit if I could. I would just like hole up and be silent and to myself. I have this incredibly strong urge to hide. So most days I feel a strong urge to hide, to buffer myself from the vulnerable life. There are moments when reality weighs heavy and I feel overwhelmed with a world that's gone mad. You know what I mean, don't you? The wars and economic woes and assaults and diseases and accidents, even beyond all the dramatic evidence of this broken world, are the everyday challenges of simply trying to love and live. More often than I care to admit, I want to nestle into the protection of anonymity, hide in a shelter of my own making. Like an ostrich with her head in the sand, I want to close my eyes blind. And yet, you and I weren't given a light so we could hide it. Our stories weren't written for our own reading any more than the sun is for its own shining. We've been given stories, broken and beautiful stories, so a broken and beautiful world can see there is a God who's written a story for them too. We've been sent, you and I. We're message bearers, storytellers, light givers. None of this can happen, however, if we hide, content to keep our stories to ourselves. There is a great big world waiting to know there is a God who sees and loves them too. Will you and I leave safety in order to be sent? Descending is hard. Descending is hard because it requires us to dig even more deeply into the safety of our truest identity, okay? Descending is going to be impossible if you are anchoring your sense of confidence to yourself, okay? Because the world's going to chew you up and spit you out. But if you are anchored, if your identity is rooted in God's never-ending affection and redemption and salvation of you, then descending is not going to take anything away from you. It's simply going to be expression of that love and that security and that identity that you already have. Okay, so this is what I want you to do. On that piece of paper, the timeline, okay, the timeline, and you've written how those different events have, what you have gained from those events, what gifts you might have received, surprising gifts you might have received as a result of those experiences. I want you to flip that paper to the back if you have a blank side, or go to a different part of that paper. We're going to make 2 columns, okay? So you might even need to get a separate piece, up to you. On the top of this page, I want you, very, very top, I want you to write Luke 22, 24 through 27. I'm going to read it to you. A dispute also arose among them as to which of them was considered to be greatest. Jesus said to them, okay, boy, when it comes to identity, that sense of who's the greatest, that comparison thing comes up again and again, okay? So here are the disciples, a bunch of guys with Jesus 2,000 years ago, and they're having an argument about who's greater than who. Sounds like a bunch of girls hanging around comparing. Anyway, verse 25, Jesus said to them, the kings of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those who exercise authority over them call themselves benefactors. But you are not to be like that. Instead, the greatest among you should be like the youngest, and the one who rules like the one who serves. For who is greater, the one who is at the table or the one who serves? Is it not the one who is at the table? But this is Jesus talking, but I am among you as one who serves. Jesus set that example. And then I just want to go back to really the theme verse for this whole study, which is Luke 9. And this is Jesus's words as well. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross daily, and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me will save it. For what good is it for someone to gain the whole world and yet lose or forfeit their very self? Friends, we weren't given a light for ourselves. We were given a light so we could shine it. We have been sent. Jesus has said that we're the salt of the earth. We're the light of the world. There is a world that needs salt, that needs light. But if you and I think that that job is only for people who write books and speak, the job will never be done. It's going to be a dark, dark world. We need more than just a small handful of people shining their light. We need you. So on that sheet, write Luke 22, 24 through 27, and Luke 9, 23 through 25 at the very top. And then on that page, I want you to make a column. So 2 columns, draw a line down the center, 2 columns. On one column, the title of one column is What the World Needs. And I want you just to sit and pray and brainstorm and think, what does the world need most right now? And just list everything you can think of. What does the world need most? Peace. The world, individuals need to know that they're loved, that they belong, that there's hope. What is it that the world needs most? I want you to make a list of what you notice. Read the newspaper, watch the news, listen to conversations in coffee shops. Pay attention to what people need most and make that list of what the world needs. And then I want you in the other column, the top of that is labeled what you have to offer. What you have to offer. And all you need to do is go back to your timeline and copy all those different gifts and skills and compassion and wisdom and talents that you received as a direct result of your story. All those things that you wrote down, those things that you gained as a result of your significant events, like cooking for me. And in that other column, I want you to list all of the things that you have to offer, that you have to offer. And then after you have both columns done, I simply want you to look for points of intersection. Where is a need that the world have? Where is one of those needs? Where could that possibly be met by something that you have to offer? Just look for points of intersection. And then whether it's with your church, with your ministry leader, with a friend, with a neighbor, whoever it is, I want you to start engaging in conversations with different leaders and mentors in your life about ways that you may be able to take a step to let your light shine in your own way, in your own world, in your own area. It's one thing to identify these gifts that you have. It's another thing to actually walk out and use them. And so what I'm doing is I'm challenging you, just like Jesus said in Luke 9, what good would it be for you to gain the whole world but lose your very self? That if we want to come after him, we must take up our cross daily and follow him. We must take up our own purpose and calling and follow him. All right. So finish that timeline, finish those columns, look for a path to expression. The 3 steps I gave you today are 1, awareness, 2, wonder, and 3, expression. And if you spell that out, that spells awe. How to live in awe of this God who has done so much to make sure we know who we are because of who he is. This is how you and I live in awe every single day, in spite of the hard places of our story, in spite of the losses and the circumstances and everything else. This is how we walk it out. Henry Nouwen, in his book, The Inner Voice of Love, said this: the years that lie behind you, with all their struggles and pains, will in time be remembered only as the way that led to your new life. The way that led to your new life. And then in Bread for the Journey, he said this: there are many forms of poverty: economic poverty, physical poverty, emotional poverty, mental poverty, and spiritual poverty. As long as we relate primarily to each other's wealth, health, stability, intelligence, and soul strength, we cannot develop true community. Listen to this, guys. Listen to this. I want you to hear this. Community is not a talent show in which we dazzle the world with our combined gifts. Community is a place where our poverty is acknowledged and accepted, not as something that we have to learn to cope with as best as we can, but as a true source of new life. Living in community, expressing the awareness and wonder of God's creative work in your life, living in community in whatever form, family, parish, 12-step program, or international community, challenges us, you and I, to come together at the place of our poverty, believing that there we can reveal our richness. That's what this has been all about. This is not a talent show. This is about you and I coming together in our places of poverty, receiving, having this awareness of the fact that we have been given the best gift in the world, that we have nothing to fear, that we are secure, living in wonder of what the Creator has done for us and through us, and then living as ongoing expressions of His light in our life as we come together in community together. That's where real wealth sits. All right, my friends. It's been a privilege to do this journey with you, an absolute privilege. I have loved every moment of walking this out with you, doing these videos, seeing your questions, watching you wrestle with this. And I know many of you are still wrestling. That is okay. So am I some days. Some days I'm still wrestling with this so much. This isn't a race. This is us walking it out, okay? Luke 9:23-25, it's walking it out day after day. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of your life over the last 6 weeks. I just love you. I love you. And what a sweet gift it's been for me to be able to bring my poverty into this community and for us to have that kind of shared experience together of discovering the virtues of God. Let me pray for you. Father God, I love you with my whole heart. I've loved you my whole life. You are what I need. God, I'm amazed at what you have done. I could not have anticipated or planned it or orchestrated it at all, not even close. Thank you for what you have done, are doing, will do in the hearts and the minds and the lives of every single person who has been a part of this journey. God, I pray with all of my heart that this would not be, that the word that you have sent out into us, the word that you have sent out into us over these 6 weeks, that it would not return void, but that it would accomplish everything that you set out for it to accomplish. You have started a good work, God, and the Bible promises that you will be faithful to complete it. I believe that. And thank you ahead of time for what you will do through the hearts and the minds and the lives of each person who's been involved and part of this study. God, I pray that you make us restless until we take our light and shine it. Don't let us be content with holding this to ourselves. Don't let us be content with just savoring the gospel for our own good news. Make us people who are restless until we just can't help ourselves but share the amazing story that you have written and the fact that we get to be a part of it. Give us courage and boldness and a deep love for people all over the world that we just cannot be silent anymore. We love you, God, with our whole heart. I pray your blessing over all of these people in the name of Jesus. Amen. All right, my friends, I love you. I've loved spending this time with you. I'll have a few more posts throughout the day, so I'll still be here on Facebook a little bit for the rest of today. But if you think about it, circle back around with me. Let me know how you're doing. All of that means a lot to me. I share it with my team when you share your stories, and it just encourages us to hear how God is working in your life. I mean, we're all part of the bigger church, the bigger community. All right, friends. Karen, Linda, Denise, Kwani, Helen. Oh, let me see here. Carrie, Juanita. I'm just looking at your Sean, Ruth Ann, Tracy, Linda, Geraldine, all of you. Thanks so much for being here. Love you guys.